There we go.
Here goes.
All right. So, how are you guys all doing?
Doing great.
Keep good.
Yeah. Eh.
Did you just say eh?
I believe it was.
That was Marcus with the eh. Do you want to elaborate more on that, or you just want to leave it as eh?
Gonna leave us hanging.
Well, it's like that old cliched phrase, it could be worse. But like things are terrible. Like personally, I'm still working, which is shocking. Managing a small independent theater. But yeah, I don't know. Like, even like on a creative level, it's been a weird. I feel like I've been writing more, but writing less of things I would actually share or publish publicly. Like, I feel like there's a lot of processing happening for me right now. And I just don't know what that means for me personally. It doesn't say like it's not bad, but it's not great either. I also feel like I haven't made anything in a while. Um, I don't know. Like it's eh. It's eh. It's not great, not bad. In the middle somewhere.
Yeah. I think I think that's probably pretty common, where we're at right now. Um, I've had a harder time being able to sustainably read something.
Mm.
And that's, been an odd thing. I've also been in an interesting place with writing too. But I'm always of the mind that, I think one of the things about being artists is that we get so accustomed to either producing or being in the act of producing something. And I equate it, and I think actually, I think I probably said it in one of I think I said it in the episode with Ark that, you know, you can only spend so much time as a chef in the kitchen. Sometimes you actually have to sit at the table and eat the meal, right? So I look at this, whatever this is going on as this period of just kind of, sitting at the table and getting those nutrients from other places, and just letting that be what it is for a while.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. A lot of times, because we're accustomed to being the producers and the sharers, that if we find ourselves in a space where we're not producing and not sharing, we feel like we're not necessarily being effective. But it is important for us to take the time to do some self-care and some self-nurturing and and healing ourselves. Personally, with me being an introvert, this whole time of quarantine isolation has been like really comfortable for me, like super comfortable to just kind of withdraw and go into my shell. So yeah, I totally get it. So I agree. It's yeah, it's
Hashtag eh.
Hashtag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Agree,
trending.
definitely.
It's trending.
I definitely agree that it's a time for processing. This has been a time when I've been like definitely more inward and definitely thinking more on all of the things that I have worked on and thinking about the ways that I need to, or that I plan to, or that I want to move beyond them or outside of them or away from them or grow with them. That kind of time. It's a time for processing for me. And I don't know where I am yet, but I'm definitely somewhere.
Yeah. Hello, Olivia. Olivia just joined us, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm at work at the same time, so I'm trying to like balance the two worlds.
You're good. We are just kind of doing the check-in right now, just seeing like how everybody is, like where we are, not just in terms of like physical space, but like emotional and mental space, because that's also extraordinarily important.
Of course. Well, hi everyone, I'm Olivia. Just checking in. If we're talking about mental space, I feel like I'm in a space of moving forward now. Um, for a couple of months there, I kind of felt like a hamster in a wheel, trying to figure out how to make my time feel more valuable from home. But I will feel like lately I've been able to get out a little more, socialize with people more, interact, see other people, and kind of crawl out of my shell, so to speak, in the last few days. So that's been really welcoming and it makes me feel hopeful about the future.
Yeah, nice.
So I feel like that's where I've been mostly.
I approve of that.
Oh, good.
Plus, plus got an A.
A lot better than A.
Yeah.
Plus got an A. I say, yeah. I feel like I've been writing as a distraction more than I used to. Different kind of feel to it. I used to be able to sit and just think about stuff, and and I just felt really focused on it. And a lot of times I write stuff now that sometimes I'm not happy with it because it just feels like a distraction. Like I'm trying to take my mind off of something, which is kind of a different feeling.
Yeah, I agree with Marcus and Marcia. Um, I'm at that place where I love being by myself. I didn't have a problem with any of the, hey, stay at home. I'm like, all right, thank you. And I was really happy about being able to Zoom and thankful for that, for being able to finish out the school year with my students that way. But now I'm feeling really overwhelmed by all the Zoom conferences, and not just Zoom, but everything else. And I almost feel busier, but still disconnected because I'm not with people, which actually helps my writing. So like Marcus, I am writing some things. I feel like I'm trying too hard to write some things. And then when I do write something, it's like, oh, I can't share that with anybody. That's just either horrible or just doesn't even sound like me. It's a little bit disconcerting, but I try to remember that when there have been times of trauma in my life in the past, and I have stopped writing, it's almost like winter, and there are seeds and roots that are going. And even though I can't feel it yet, I know that spring's going to come, and I'll be able to write. I'll be able to do and say the things that need to be said and done. But I just have to wait, and I'm not really a patient person. The red hair, it's but I do so appreciate being able to get together like this, even though I still feel one of my students called it the feed fatigue, and it's just I am very tired.
That's understandable.
I pulled back from internet stuff for a while just because I was getting Zoom fatigue. And really, I found that I wasn't writing poetry. I started doing some freelance journalism, which is where I was before the days of poetry. And that's been rewarding. And now I'm writing poetry too. So things are coming back together. But I spent some time, my day job went away. So I'm relying on Social Security only at this point. But I'm being paid for some of my freelance articles, which is pulling things back together. And writing. And I think the good side of all of this is that I'm meeting new people online, but I was just participating in little groups here and there in Chattanooga. The last couple of weeks, I've joined an open mic group out of Nashville and another one out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. And it's interesting to hear new voices and to share my voice with some other people and to feel like I'm getting not just getting myself known in more locations, which I am, but also learning some new things about other writers and about other styles of writers, because no two groups are alike.
That's true.
Absolutely. I think one of the things to kind of emerge from the pandemic is, location really isn't abstract right now. Like through the advent of technology, you can not just interact, but really, in some cases, form genuine relationships and a true connection with people who, might be on the other side of the country or on the other side of the world. And not to say that wasn't the case before, but I think that this has really kind of exacerbated, how resourceful we can be in terms of, finding other communities and being able to foster connections with other people. Is that everybody? Is everybody kind of checked in just to get going? I'm looking through. Lily, did you tell us how you were doing?
I don't think so. I kind of vibe with what everybody's been saying, how you feel like your writing's a distraction, but I'm really just having trouble, honestly, focusing on one project, if that makes sense. It's like my brain has decided to take this time in quarantine to develop all these new ideas that I've kind of had on my brain for so long. I'm a freshman in college, and in high school, I really didn't get the opportunity to work on all the things I wanted to. And so now I have all of this free time, but it's like I can't dedicate myself to one thing. So that's a little frustrating. But other than that, it's just been a vibe, if that's the term that I should go with. It's just been all right, It's been interesting.
Interesting for sure. If it's any consolation, there's a great poet. We actually looked at one of his poems in class, named Adrian Matika, and he got this from somebody else, and I can't remember who he got it from, but basically, the advice is to try to work on 3 books at once, because whenever you run into the wall on one, you're like, all right, well, I'll just switch gears and it's on to the sci-fi mystery, for the time being. And
Big
that
brain.
it I think that perspective kind of it keeps you on your toes, because you don't feel like everything, on one front has to be like all killer, no filler. You got a little room for, all right, I'm just going to put that on the shelf for now, and, delve into some other things, right? I think that's a really neat thing. So for everybody, we are approaching 2 years since we stopped filming. We cut the cameras. I think the last episode that we shot was the episode with Marcia and KB. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was November the 1st of 2018. So yeah, we're rapidly approaching 2 years since the cameras went off. What has changed in your lives and in your works since then?
I will tell you, it was really, really nice to see the docuseries, to see all of the series at this particular point in our lives, because I can't remember the last time that I had a lengthy conversation with anyone and they weren't 6 feet away from me or had a mask on their face. So it was really nice to see the videos of Carrie and I, and also you and some of the others, where they were just sitting in a more intimate space and having these conversations, because that's something that I've really missed for the past few months.
Yeah.
different kind of energy exchange when you write in front of someone personally. Yeah.
Proximity definitely, breeds a certain type of energy. And that was one of the things that I was after in terms of, um, putting it together, because initially I had so many names on the list of people to interview. Like there's like 18. And I won't get into, I'll have to do this like off camera when we're not recording. But when certain circumstances changed, we had to make some executive decisions. And I thought it would add a different kind of flavor if we actually just put two or more bodies in the same space and just let them riff off of each other. And I think that it really added a certain element that I initially didn't anticipate, but I loved, and I think it's evident that if you look at the episodes, there are several moments where when it cuts to my face, you could see like my reaction in the moment where I'm just like surprised that we're just really like leaning into a moment. And I know, not to say that we wouldn't have got there if it was just individual one-on-one interviews, but I think it definitely brought us in the wheelhouse by pairing up everybody in the way that we did. So how has the work changed? Tell us the things.
I will say that I've definitely been able to interact with more people and see other opportunities to share. Um, I'll say I think Maul and myself have something coming up with the Hunter Museum of Art. So I don't think that would have happened unless I was, involved in this in some sort of way. Because I feel like a lot of times I might not be able to pull myself out of my own shell. It takes definitely somebody else to do that. So I definitely helped the whole process help build my confidence, though, for sure, about just sharing and being able to share with others.
Excellent. You want to give us the details on when that's taking place?
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to give you the wrong information, but I know we are planning to do this in October.
Okay. We also have the chat portion on the Zoom thing, if you want to put the details there too.
Yes. So let me do it there. That way
Okay.
I can get the right information and I'll put it in the chat for everyone.
That works.
It's the October 22nd.
October 22nd. Is that?
Yes, mark your calendars. It'll be at 6:00, I think, at the museum. And I'm super excited about it. I have no idea what all of us are doing for it, though.
I think that's almost the most exciting part because it's just like, it's going to be a surprise, but I love that it's women driven.
Nice.
This is project the F word series that they're doing.
Sorry?
This is for the F word series over at the Hunter.
Yeah.
Nice.
I definitely agree with Olivia in that, like, doing this project reminds me a lot how much I lean on the community of poets around me. I don't think that I would still be writing poetry and performing poetry if it wasn't for people like Christian who will message me and be like, hey, what are you writing lately? Do you want to do this? How about this? We have a thing going on soon. If I wasn't getting like regularly pulled back into poetry, I don't know that I'd still be doing it, which is really unfortunate because I love doing it so much. But then all of the other things in my life try to pull me away from those things, like work and parenting and this chore and that chore and all of these other things that need to be done. But then there's always a constant reminder of to make room for things like this that really do just give me so much life.
I'm glad you said that. It's definitely a form of self-care.
Yeah, and parents are the last ones to take care of themselves. So, I'm very fortunate that I'm at a place where the kids are grown and gone, and um, I can, the husband can do what he wants to do, and then I can just take some space for myself. And so that's really nice. But I remember the days when I didn't have that time, and so I encourage those of you who have little ones still or teenagers to just you've got to make that space for yourself. If you don't write, you will go crazy. And there's so much that you can write about now that you're going through, even just tossing it off on a napkin or something if you have to and put it somewhere. But you'll come back to it and you'll be able to write about it. And it's just really a wonderful place to be finally. Although, each time the school year starts, I teach high school and college, and each time the school year starts, I stop writing because, my creative juices are limited, trying to get everything in place. But I didn't realize it had been 2 years. I thought it just feels like last year that we sat down and had this chat. And so when you said 2 years, I was like, oh my gosh, what all has changed in my life? And I think that right after we did that, I had another book come out, and then I'm going to have another one come out this spring. So, again, those of you who are not writing right now because you think you don't have time, please make that time, because I've heard each one of you, even if I didn't know you before this moment, hadn't sat down to talk with you before this moment, I've heard you on this series, and everybody in here has a fabulous voice, and you need to share it with everybody. So please make time to do that.
Absolutely.
Also, I think Lucille Clifton did an interview and was asked once about why her poems were so short, and she was like, "I got kids, yo. Like I don't have a whole bunch of time to knock out these epics.
Right.
You get it the way that it shows up." But I a few months ago, really when the pandemic first hit, in America, I had the chance to do a series of workshops, and really the impetus of that was just kind of being able to remix and to reimagine existing work and different ways to generate new work. And I think that one of the the cool things about having people who inspire you is that in some way they give you permission to do different things. If you're inspired by, Mark Bradford, who's an incredible visual artist who works with end papers, those little tiny papers that people, if you go to hair salons, that's what they use. He uses paper to paint his works, right? Um, if you are inspired by somebody who comes from that, then in some way, part of Mark's process trickles down to you. And if you give yourself permission, you can start thinking about, well, how can I, tear my own work apart and build it back up in a way that is surprising and maybe challenging to me. And I think that this is one of those times where, again, we resourcefulness is all around us. We just have to train our eyes and our minds to think a little bit different and to be able to, imagine what else we can be and what else we can do.
And we're actually living in a soundbite world. So if you've only got time to write that short thing, that's probably all anybody has time to read too. So write it, because there are people who are living your lives who need to hear somebody who can do poetry, because they can't, and that's not their wheelhouse. But yeah, I'd forgotten about Lucille Clifton saying that, and I always love her work. And so thank you for reminding me. It's important to read everybody that you can get your hands on.
It's always a good time to throw in Lucille Clifton into any conversation, because she's one of the greatest of all time.
Yes.
Well, and for me, since quarantine started, I've actually found myself in more situations where I'm curating with other writers and artists. Like it was back in, I think, April or May. Um, like at Barking Legs, we got into a partnership with the Heart Gallery and Ava to do a virtual gallery tour. We had pieces from Heart Gallery clients, and they wanted to pair those paintings with original spoken word pieces from people whose lives have been impacted by addiction and recovery. And that was interesting because I'd never done something like that. So I went and found like writers and poets and people who I just think have interesting voices from around the community in Chattanooga to be the soundtrack for this gallery tour. And it was actually really wonderful. And it wasn't something I'd ever done before. Like telling other people here, I'm gonna choose this painting for you, and here's your guidelines, and let's put it together. And I'm gonna, I'll be there to edit if you need. More recently, like we're doing these drive-in dances at Barking Legs out in this grass lot, and I got roped into being a dancer, which is not something I do. But prior to that, to do the sound score, I had these interview sessions with the other artists who were involved to record these reflections on right now, on where they are right now with dealing with just life and trauma and racism and this administration and all these different things. And that's something that I don't think I'd be doing if we weren't, for all kinds of reasons, wouldn't be doing if it wasn't for the quarantine and the current state of life at the moment. And that has been, it's something that I want to pursue more now. Because like I said, my own writing I feel is really flat and stagnant, but there's something about using my own experience and aesthetic and perspective to help people who, especially people who don't consider themselves to be poets or writers, to find their voice and to use it in a creative way that we get to share together. That's been something I've really enjoyed that I otherwise wouldn't be doing right now.
Nice. You get to diversify your palette during these times. Ray, how about you?
Sorry, I was muted. My poetry's become more surreal. I just got a surrealist poem accepted by Quill and Parchment, an online journal. And as I said before, I'm enjoying meeting some new folks in other cities. And I was in an open mic last night based in Nashville, but there were performers in there from California, Arizona, Maine, London, where it was midnight when we started, and one from Sydney, Australia, where it was 8 in the morning. You think about all these people in different time zones, and we're all hearing each other's poems and all presenting our poems for the rest of the group. It was pretty, it's expanding my perceptions of poetry.
Nice. Lily, you were featured in the last episode. So what has changed for you after that would have been your first year in the Voices program. So how have things changed since then? We also cannot hear you.
Oh, can you not?
I can hear you now.
You're okay, now. Cool. I was like, I thought I unmuted. Okay. If that was the first year I was at Voices, then a whole lot has changed. Too much. I've finished high school for one thing. I also actually joined Manifest Voices because I wanted to challenge myself in my writing. I didn't think I was good at poetry to begin with. It was something that I didn't think I had the skill for. I was a prose writer. I got into my high school for it. I went to an art school, and I wanted to challenge myself because I was getting kind of bogged down in prose writing and getting bored with it. and I took a prose and poetry class, and through that, through a friend, I got into voices, and through voices and Christian's wonderful teaching, I found just this undying love for poetry and what you can create with it. So more recently, I've been pairing a lot of visual art pieces with poetry. Instead of just using my words, I'll try and find a piece online or make one myself and build something around that, which is something I don't think past me would have ever thought of or considered to actually be poetry. She was very closed-minded when it came to what poetry was. But now we're here. I have been semi-working on a book, not getting very far, but just kind of gathering poems here and there and making a conglomeration of writing. Uh, so yeah, I've just grown in personality through poetry, if that makes sense. I've found myself within it, and I don't think I can go back from that. So that's where I am.
Excellent. And you know, there is no going back.
There
It's
really
poetry is poetry is kind of like, you know, I don't know how things are with gangs now, but back in the 80s and 90s, you know, they had a term called blood in, blood out, you know, so it's very hard to get out of the gangs. Poetry and the arts are kind of the same way, you know. Just you might think that you're done with it, but it might not be done with you.
it just sinks its claws into you and it never lets go. It never lets go.
Absolutely. So tangentially related, like what does poetry mean to you guys in 2020? And when I asked, you know, before about, you know, kind of what poetry meant to you guys, you know, again, it was 2018. So what does poetry mean to you now in 2020 amidst, you know, global collective trauma and racism and social upheaval and all the things?
I guess for me, uh, it's no longer a form just of self expression and getting my own thoughts out there for myself. It's more of a way to do that on top of making people aware of what's going on and getting information out and not feeding to the unrest, but adding to it and attempting to bring that into a better light than some people I think view it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep,
Also,
I
I'm sorry.
oh no, you go first.
I was just going to chime in and say how I felt about things that I've done in the past. I used to think that things might have been controversial to myself, but I don't feel that way anymore. I think that a lot more people now are speaking up or sharing things that they may not have shared. And I find that a lot of commonalities are coming about when it comes to themes or things that people deal with. So saying things that I felt like were controversial or might not share publicly is slowly dissolving more and more as time goes on.
Same, similar. I agree with Lily and Olivia. Poetry is just, I guess 2 years ago when you asked that, I was imagining poetry as being a thing that is both bigger and smaller than what it really is. I didn't imagine that I was a poet, but for me, poetry is an important method of delivering a message. And whatever that message is, be it controversial or not, it's your way of communicating that to other people. And it's also our way of absorbing that message when we're hearing it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I found that poetry means different things and has a different position depending on where I am in my life. So at this particular point, for me personally, poetry is healing. Unlike so many of the rest of you, where the things that I am taking the time to write aren't necessarily, at this point anyway, things that I'm envisioning sharing. They're really just kind of for me. There's there's just something therapeutic about being able to just express and not have to face any type of judgment for that. On a social level, I've found that, with all that's going on, with all that's going on right now, that you'll get backlash more quickly from making a statement of your position than you will for sharing it through poetry. Um, for some reason, it seems like people are more open to hearing a poem that states a different view than what they have, than from you just making a statement that this is how I feel about something. Not at all to say that you can't state your position, but people aren't as defensive when they hear poetry from a different standpoint than their own. So I found that poetry on a social level, especially in times like this, opens conversation a little bit better than just making a statement.
Yeah. It's almost like so much information is out there, you don't know what to trust, but I can definitely trust poetry,
Yeah.
even if it's coming from someone who I don't maybe share the same opinions with. I would trust to listen to what they had to creatively say.
I think for me, right now, poetry is more meditative than I think it's ever been in my life. Um, I spend most of my time as a poet creating work for others to hear and to read, to talk about things like what's going on right now, to talk about injustices. I spent so much time, so much of my creative energy, like sounding the alarm or offering perspectives or offering insight, that I find that right now, that poetry that used to be so present and available for me to access is tired. It's exhausted. And so now I have no desire to try to use my art to change someone's opinion or to give them insight, because I've said my piece on those things so much. And there was one thing, somebody asked me to contribute a poem for something, and I literally just sent them a copy of a poem I wrote like 8 years ago. And I was like, I'm not going to waste your time or mine writing something new. And I think it's also why my poetry, what I've been writing lately, very little of it I would share or have shared, because it's for me right now. For right now, it's like Marcia said, it's healing. Like I'm working on some internal things right now, and the poetry is, yeah. I think Marcia hit it. It's healing for me right now. That's what it means for me.
Ark, what about you?
I would agree. It's kind of like bleeding out the poison. Um, it feels like there's a lot kind of that's being taken in right now that's toxic as hell. And so for me, it's kind of bleeding out that poison. It's kind of antidote at the same time, because it's true. Whatever I think you put into poetry, you put into your art, it's true. Um, so it's kind of the age of fake news and fake information and all that kind of stuff. So that's the one thing that you can trust. Like I think it was Olivia saying it, Marsha. You can trust it. So this is true. This is kind of antidote for it. So yeah, that's even more so now. And it kind of this year has kind of lent a fearlessness to the arts that I think wasn't there for me before. But it's kind of just like, you know what, do or die. Just want to put this on paper. I might share it, I might not, but whatever. I'm gonna put it out there though, and you know that's something outside. Right here in my house. you know. So.
Nice. So I'm going to ask you guys to, look into the future, however far that might be. what would you like to see for yourselves, your work, the community, moving forward?
I feel like, I guess an answer to the last question and to this one is the word is possibility. And I hope that the possibilities that have opened this last year for all people continue. Being able, everybody being able to be comfortable with writing whatever they're writing and sharing it. If the audience doesn't like it, there is another audience. There are always people who are going to listen, and it troubles me that people think there isn't an audience for their work. There are so many different people out there. Nobody should not share their work. And like I said before, everybody here has something to say, something to give other people, and you've got the words for it. And some people don't have words, and so they need to hear it from you. And if a particular audience isn't your audience, well, they can go do something else. There's find your people will find you. And so I'm looking forward to the possibility of not being afraid to say whatever it is I need to say and put it out there. And, if somebody doesn't like it, I need to be okay with that. But I'll find people who do like it. Or they'll find me, hopefully.
I like that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You go ahead.
I was just gonna piggyback on what Carrie was saying, that a lot of times that we need to be reminded of what Carrie just shared with us, because a lot of times when we are just kind of on our own, we are our own worst critics, and we will devalue some of the things that we create, some of our ideas, some of the things that we've pulled together. And we do need to be reminded that they are valuable. They may not be valuable to everyone, but there's somebody out there who really needs to hear what has come out of us, because there's a reason that it was put in us to share. So I just wanted to thank Carrie for the reminder, because we need to be reminded of that. And that too is part of the power of having a community of creatives and people to just kind of pull you back to reality and realize that you are valuable.
Yeah, that was really what I was going to say, and piggybacking off of both of you in regards of just taking that kind of confidence into the future, putting yourself out there into the future. For myself, I need to publish my stuff. I can't sit on it any longer, and I can't talk myself out of it any longer. So that's what I would like to do in the future, is to do that, and also maybe branch out a little more to create more safe spaces for other artists, whether that be friends who want to gather and come up with some prompts or whatever. Just trying to create that community where I am.
I approve of both of those points. So this is behind the scenes stuff, like when we started the Plug reading series, where we bring writers to town. I gave Olivia a challenge. I was like, I really would like for you to do a chapbook, for this year. And realistically, the time frame that I was like, I think that you should try to hit it within this amount of time. I'm not going to say that no book, chapbook, or no gets generated in that span of time. But really the impetus for that for me was just to kind of put pressure on you to start thinking in terms of, if I'm going to put a collective body together, how do I start building that house, right?
Yeah, that was so much help. It was a tremendous amount of help to just have that pressure, to have that focus at the very least. Because now that I'm getting older and I think about it, I know that my writing will change over time. So why wait? You know, just even if it doesn't have a pretty cover. I think that my own perfectionism is what gets in my way of trying to have things look or be a certain way before presenting them, when I just got to put it out there.
Sure. But, also you have, and this kind of echoes your other point and kind of goes back to your episode with Marcus, was that, you have people who publish poems and, don't just like publish poems. You have people who like, have really cool, publish, who've published in really good places, people who've put books together. You got one in here, at least right now, so you have different helping hands, who I'm sure would be more than willing to help you in whatever way possible. And one of the things that we talked about in your episode was, just that ability to create avenues for other people, and not just creating a lane, because anybody. I'm not going to say that. A lot of people create lanes that are not supportive for other people. There are a number of predatory lanes, or lanes that are built off of, ego and all these things that really shouldn't be factors in the process. So the key is to kind of create lanes that are not just supportive of other artists, but are mutually so, right? That's how communities and everything get better, is by doing things like the right way. So I'm definitely in favor of that. I think that's awesome. Ray, what do you think?
We are a mirror for the larger society. That's one of the definitions of what being a writer is. And I think, Ark said something about the society having become toxic. And to me, the society has become disjointed and surreal. And I think my surreal poems are a response to the larger society. Things no longer make sense. And so I'm writing poems now that make no sense, at least on the first reading. You read them a couple of times, you may see a point there, but we are here. And yes, we do write for ourselves, Marcus. Everyone does. I know you said that. But we are also here just to be a pulse of the society and to hold up a mirror and show people what's going on.
I like that. As the kids say nowadays, that's a bar.
That's a bar.
Now, my last job was as a bartender, so.
So who else? What do you guys think? How do you imagine yourself in the future?
I like to think that I will continue writing. Olivia and I have that show coming up next month. And there's never going to be a time when I am not encouraged to continue writing. I will say that, I believe that I'm kind of taking a break, in that I'm trying to work on helping to start instilling those creative habits in my own child. Now being able to work with so many other artists, I feel that, not pressure, but encouragement to try to allow that for my own kids. So now she's starting to take the space to draw and to write, and being able to watch that is really inspiring for me, and is helping me to want to write even more, because I have that muse of sorts right there in front of me, and it's encouraging me to go right back down to the basics of just ink and pen. Or
Who else?
something.
Yeah. Who else?
Yeah, one of the things that I would like to focus on in the future is to continue to encourage writers, especially younger writers, not necessarily young as far as chronological age, but those who haven't performed on large stages and large platforms. A couple of years ago, right around the time that I had the opportunity to be a part of the docuseries, I had the opportunity to lead an open mic at the downtown public library through the festival that the Writers Guild was doing. And I had an opportunity to meet Maul and some other amazing writers. And just maybe a couple of months after that, I opened up my home and started doing open mics at my home. So I have like this special place set up where I invite just a few people. It's really small and intimate, but mostly younger writers to come in. I served a meal every time that we did it, and had an amazing time. There's nothing like, and I'm sure that Christian, Carrie, Ray, many of you can relate to this. There's nothing like seeing like the lights come on when there's somebody who's sharing something, and they're well received. They realize that they're in a safe place. They're in a judgment-free zone, and they actually have a captive audience who's like listening to them. A lot of people go their whole lives and don't have a captive audience and a safe place to express themselves. So in the future, I hope that this whole COVID thing clears up and we're able to start gathering again, so that I can start back having those intimate open mics in my home.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. That's so warm and good. That made my heart very happy, Marsha. um, I think for the future, what I want for myself, I'm not sure if it'll happen. I really hope for it too, is that I get back into more of the spoken word community. I write a lot of poetry, but I don't find myself presenting it to people as much as I used to and how much I love to. I've just kind of fallen out of it, and I really hate that happened, and I'm wanting to get back into it and to get more into the arts community of Chattanooga, honestly, or just Tennessee, the US, anywhere. I just want to spend more time with other artists, because I found myself talking to you all and listening and genuinely being more inspired to just write a poem right now than I have in months. I was trying not to make it noticeable. I was sitting on my phone in my notes app trying to type out these like short little ideas so I'd remember what it was like and what I was feeling. But that's what I'm wanting for the future, to be able to do more spoken word, to maybe be published, and just to be more artists and be more involved in the community. That's what I'm really wanting.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else?
Honestly, for the future, like I want to explore collaborations and art that's just weird. I want to get into things like Gray's talking about his abstract absurdist, kind of writing, which is something I've always been a fan of, and I've only done a few times. And I'm like I said, I'm really interested in like these projects where I've been collaborating with other artists, some poets or otherwise, and I just have this urge to make something really wild and weird. Hopefully, at least entertaining. I don't know. That's where I see my futures. I want creatively. I want to try something strange.
Nice. You know, the kind of echoing back to earlier, about permission. That's the thing. And I'm going to stretch out on it a little bit. When I said the thing about being inspired by someone is that, they give you permission. I think the thing about inspiration, period, is that it gives you permission to try different things, to want different things, right? So I'm definitely a fan of that. And I don't think anybody in here actually took the workshop that I did a couple months ago. But one of the mantras from that was just, lean into the strange. If you're like, oh no, this seems really kind of weird. Like, I don't know why this guy's green. Follow it, because you could always if you go down that path and you're not satisfied with where it is, you have the option to never show that to anybody else or look at it again. Or you can actually take different parts of that out and make something else out of it. Whereas if you don't follow that impulse, you never reach that point. So at least through the pursuit, you're getting different text. You're bringing something into your wheelhouse that wasn't there previously, right? So definitely lean into the weird and the strange. We talked about magic a little bit in my workshop. And if anybody's interested in like any of that stuff or what we talked about, I can run through that with you. It's totally an option. But magic is really kind of a vehicle for connecting two different worlds. And by being inspired and giving yourself permission, that's another way to connect different worlds and to kind of serve as a bridge. Anybody else on the future?
Just, I see myself working with kids a lot more, or young people. Um, and like Marsha was saying, just seeing that. I got a chance to work with Muse of Fire, which is a theater, play writing workshop for 10 to 12-year-olds, which is awesome. And I'm working with Macaulay right now, um, on a production. It's kind of awesome just watching the way that kids are fearless. So just being inspired by them, it helps me to be more fearless, and I see more of that going on. Um, and it kind of speaking of what Marshall was saying earlier again, as far as people being more receptive to poetry and to arts and the, different truths like that, when they're presented artistically, um, hopefully that I see there being more of that, more opportunity for that, of people being receptive to, especially right now. Um, it's a lot of upheaval, a lot of chaos. So I think it's also a good time for the farmers to sow these artistic seeds, um, um, and people are kind of receptive to it right now. So.
Excellent. Yeah, you've been that's kind of been a thing for you for a while. Like I remember running, I think it might have been 2018 for Main Times 24, and you had just finished doing a thing with the Muse of Fire that day. So yeah, it seems like working with the youth has definitely been something that's been giving you some life for a while.
It's oxygen, man. They're not kids. They don't know what gravity is, so it's just kind of it's cool that they just to watch them take off however they want to. They're not weighed down by a lot of the same stuff we are. Um, so it helps to remember what wings are like. So it's I think that's something that I would love to see more of later. Deep experiences.
Right. That also, I think that you should probably write that line down of remembering what wings are like, because if you don't, somebody else in here is going to steal it. Just saying. Well, we've been going for a little bit over an hour. I think we probably can shut this thing down. How do you guys feel? Are you satisfied with the way that the episodes came out? Would you, if we got more funding and all of that good stuff, would you be open to more in the future?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes.
I'd love to see you work with more poets.
Yes.
Everyone
And I would
gets-
say thank you to you, Christian, just for bringing this all together and like having that creative influence. It's been really, really encouraging.
It has.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, working with all of you guys, working with all of the poets in Chattanooga in general has made me feel very, very bonded to all of you. Like Christian, I've been doing stuff with you for like 9 years, and Olivia, Ark, Ray, Marcus. It's been a long time at this point,
Yeah.
and it feels very like going to a family reunion that you actually want to go to.
Yes.
I like that.
Accurate.
Great.
My I think I said this to each and every one of you when we were filming, that my number one concern was just being able to get it right, and whatever that means. And so thank you guys for entrusting yourselves, your work, all of that with me. And yeah, it was an honor to kind of take this journey with you guys. Once we stop recording, we can get into like the behind the scenes stuff of the near lawsuits and all of that stuff. But everything shook out right. So I couldn't be more proud of than I am right now. So thank you guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Christian.
So we will I'll go ahead and shut this thing down, and we'll get it onto YouTube in the near future. I'll let you guys know when it's available, and we'll do that, all that good stuff then.
Awesome.
Blessings to you and to all of you.
You too, Ray.
All of you.